Joining me now, the most prolific head football coach in state history, arguably the greatest coach on earth. A man is going into the Texas High School Coaches Association Hall of Honor. The one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, Aledo Bearcat head football coach Tim Buchanan. And Coach Buck, you and I kidded after your 10th state championship that you're going to have to start making rings for your toes. How do you design a ring for your toe? Because that's actually going to happen now with your 11th state championship.
You know, the kids and I have been talking about it. The kids have recommended a nipple ring. So I'm not sure that I can handle that, but that's what the players are shooting for.
That's a very good look for you. I like that. You know, I've seen the picture with all your rings, and it's spectacular. I mean, nobody else can do that. But I look back to 1998, and it's just really little tiny small ring, and as you go they get bigger and bigger and bigger. Now you're almost up to a ring that's the size of a birthday cake. Tell me about the design process of how you do this, because you have to top what you did the year before.
Well, what you know, in 98, you know, when you design that one, you're thinking probably the only ring we'll ever get. And so you try to design one that's going to be really neat, really nice, and you let the kids do it. I bring all the seniors in, and they get a little input, and then I kick the seniors out and just bring the captains in, and we kind of modify. It's a process. I'm telling you, it's a process. And then I show the coaches. But the kids really designed the ring, and they're really good. And you know, Coach Wood, when Coach Wood was the head coach and won his 3 out of the 11, he was adamant that they were not going to do the giant ring. He wanted one that he would be able to wear. So in 14 and 16, if you look at them, they're not the big. They're more like the 98 ring. But then in 2018, his last one, it got big again. And he let the kids get involved. And, of course, the kids were really good this time because there was a ring that they liked. And the ring designer goes, now, you understand you're not going to be able to wear this ring. You're not going to be able to wear it. You won't be able to put it on your hand. When you put it on your hand, you won't be able to put your hand in your pocket. You won't be able to wear it because you're going to be hitting it on tables. Said you're not good. This ring is a trophy case ring. So the kids actually said, no, we don't want that. And we're getting a ring that's going to be really nice. The problem is every senior class wants to design a ring that's unique to them. But when you're working on number 11, it's hard to figure out something that somebody else hadn't already done.
So for you personally, how do you display these things? I kind of picture going to your house and clicking on a light, and you have like 11 rings and shadow boxes spinning and like a spotlight on them. How do you display all these? Or are they just kind of in the back of a closet?
They're actually, my wife bought an end table that it has a glass top and has a display case in it. And we have, because I actually have 16. Because I won one as an assistant coach at A&M Consolidated in 1991. Then I have 8 as a head coach, and then the 3 when Coach Wood was the head coach. And then we've got 2 in softball, 1 in baseball, and 1 in golf. So we've got a bunch of them. And then the association gives the head coach a state championship ring. So that's another 8 rings that I'm going to have. So you start running out of play, and it's a great problem. Coach Wood and I just left the football field because, you know, we put those state of Texas around our field when we had our field made. We have 10 state championship monuments. It's not a monument. It's the logo in the field, 10 of them. He goes, where are we going to put the 11th?
You need to build a new complex just for this giant. It's a state of Texas statue. I've seen it. It's lifelike. It's bigger than the 2 of us together for one of them, and it's got the names of all the players on the team. It's really spectacular. I thought that when I saw that, I'm like, you're running out of space.
We don't know where we're going to put that either. And of course, when we did the one in 98, it's an Indian stone. Comes out of India. I mean, it's Indian granite They're not cheap. And, you do one, you're thinking this is the only one we ever made. And then you get the second one in 09, he's okay, probably never going to get another one. And next thing you know, you got 11 of them. And, it is an issue to where we're going to put this one, because are we going to put it with the rest or are we going to put it in a different spot? Because it's a good problem to have, but it is a problem.
Man, you are the Lord of the Rings. There is no doubt about it. I look at this last state championship, and it really felt like it was significant for you, maybe more so than some of the other ones. The fact that a little community in Aledo that's turned into this state power, and you make the big move up to 5A Division I. You're in the same district with Denton Ryan, who you beat in district play, who's been in a state championship game pretty much every single year in the last decade. How significant was it for you to make the move up, knowing you didn't really have the numbers against the competition and battling through the injuries in the playoffs and all that, and still able to get the prize?
Well, the fact that, and if someone asked me last spring if this was going to be a team that we were going to contend for a state championship with, we weren't even picked to win our district. I don't even know if we were picked second in our district by a lot of people. We had a ton of juniors playing. We had a couple of freshmen starting, and we go 0-2 to start the season. So everybody's talking. The number one thing people talked about was, you're gonna lose a game and you're gonna lose that district win streak. Now we didn't talk about it a bunch, but that's what I kept hearing on sportscasters talk about. And we weren't even thinking. Nobody was even thinking about Aledo winning the state championship. They were concerned, hey, they're going to lose their district win streak. We hadn't lost a district game since 2007.
Amazing.
Are they going to lose that? And that was the big talk. So for us to do what we did and to take this team that started out 0-2, couldn't score a touchdown, and to take them all the way to a state championship game, and then score 50-something points in a state championship game and have a 35-0 lead at halftime is just a tribute to the players, number one, and the coaches on top of that. And, yes, it did mean – it was a lot like the 98 state championship, because in 98 we were picked 6th in the district.
Wow.
And we ended up winning a state championship. We graduated 21 out of 22 starters from the 97 team. And we going to win it in 1998, which started all of this. And then this was very, very similar to that year.
Yeah, I think about the 0-2 start, all the doubters are creeping in, and yet you run the table, 14 straight wins. And I think one of your best coaching efforts by you and your staff was the fact that you took out number one Longview in the state semifinals. Nobody thought you were going to do that. I did. I said, I give Buck and his staff a chance to do all that. Defensively, it was a genius game plan, because this is the big bad Lobos. Those guys had history behind them like you guys. How are you able to kind of weather Longview in the weather and get to that state championship game?
Well, I tried to talk John into going to the Star, getting indoors. And he did, of course, they're a power offense, and he wanted to be outside. And honestly, I think it turned around and helped us. The rain and all that really helped us win the game. And Brad McCone, our defense coordinator and defensive staff, came up with a really, really good plan. And we shut their running game down pretty much, and kept them in check. The big wide receiver scored a couple of touchdowns on us, but pretty much kept them in check, and Robbie did a great job of getting us in the end zone a few times, or a couple of times, and getting a field goal. But it was, that's the first time in my football career, I've ever beaten Longview.
Wow.
When I was in high school, we played them, we tied. And then when I was a coach at Colleen Ellison, and we were in the top classification back then, which was 5A. We played them in the first 2 rounds, and they beat us 14. They scored 14 points every time we played, I think. But they beat us 14-7 both times we played them in the playoffs. So it was a lot of fun to win that game.
Yeah, I'll have to remind John King about that. I don't know if he wants to talk about that. But
I would. It was funny because John and I were, yeah, that 2-hour rain delay. Of course, I'd planned for a 6-hour delay.
Wow.
I'd looked at the weather. We had packed peanut butter jelly sandwiches, pretzels, Gatorade, water.
Wow.
We had packed enough snacks and enough food to keep our kids energy. We had a plan on how we were going to divide them up, what we were going to talk about, when we were going to meet, how many. Like we had during that 2-hour rain delay, we probably had 4 different group or individual or team meetings with the kids, just so that they stayed mentally in the game. And I'd walked outside, was talking to John, and of course, it starts pouring down.
Oh,
it starts
man.
raining, and he looked at me and he said, that star's looking a lot better right now. I said, no, I don't think so. I think we're going to play it right here.
You were ready. Well, you get to the state championship game and you take on College Station, and it had to be sweet revenge because 5 years ago, they won the state championship game against you guys. They're the only team that's ever beaten you at AT&T Stadium. I mean, it's remarkable that the Bearcats are 15-1 at AT&T Stadium there in Jerry World. How sweet was it to beat those guys, knowing that they were the only team that ever beat you there, and to win the state championship and do it really in convincing fashion?
Well, I was the AD when all that happened. So honestly, it wasn't in the back of my mind like it was Robbie Jones and Brad McCone and Andy Clark and Stephen Reeves, the coaches that were actually coaching in that game. It really was in the back of their minds. Of course, it was the thing that I don't know if it was on camera or not, but we score our first touchdown, we missed the first extra point. Or was it second? We miss an extra point,
which is similar to the one you lost. That was the reason.
So I turned around and looked at Robbie, and the look on Rob's face was just like, not again. And I just start laughing. I just smile at him and start laughing, which loosened him up and loosened Brad up, because they thought, and our holder broke his thumb before the game, the week before the game.
Wow.
So he's got a cast on his hand. We had holder tryouts on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday going into the state championship game.
Wow. That's not the kind of preparation you like.
Yeah. Of course, Robbie's going nuts. When are we going to work on it? I said, Robbie, we're working on it. We just hadn't found anybody better than the crippled guy, the one with the broken thumb. And actually, Boston Epley, even though he had a cast on his thumb, still held and did a good job holding. We had that one foobar on the first one. But it ended up not mattering. But when that first happened, you talk about an omen. We're sitting there thinking, oh, no, not again. It's going to come down to us missing an extra point. But luckily, it didn't come down to that. But, yes, to answer your question, for the coaches, now, most of these kids were in 6th, 7th grade when that happened. So they don't remember it. But the coaches all remembered it. They really did.
Hoss Haney, what a story he is. He comes from a family of world-class athletes. His dad played football at TCU. Mom was a track star. He was in quite a quarterback battle in the offseason going into this year, probably one of the best quarterback battles you've ever had, because usually you just go, okay, I'll take that Bishop kid. You proved that you can win a state championship without a Bishop. But how did he manage your team? Because this was a kid that went from wide receiver to quarterback. How does he kind of relate to some of the great quarterbacks that you've had in the past?
Hoss has an arm very similar to the kid who we won the 98 with, Joel Laminack, and then Brandon Nicolosi Fowler, and Dylan Davis. He's got a strong arm like those kids, extremely, extremely strong arm. But he's got speed like the head kid we had, Brock Newton, who was a 10-300 meter guy that played quarterback for us back in the early 2000s. So Hoss and people said, well, he's an athlete playing quarterback. No, he's a quarterback who is a great athlete. He has a tremendous arm, a lightning fast release. I mean, he gets the ball out of his hand extremely fast, like the Bishops did. But I mean, most of the Bishops couldn't throw the ball 50 yards down the field. Hoss can throw the ball 80 yards.
Wow.
He's got a tremendous arm, and he's strong and fast. I mean, he ran a 10.5, a handheld time, but a 10.5 100-meter dash last year as a sophomore during track season.
Wow. You've had so many great athletes that have played for you. I know it's very difficult to do this, but if you could kind of narrow down the best of the best to your all-time top 5, what would be your top 5 players that have played at Aledo?
Well, you got to start with Jonathan Gray. You know, Jonathan, the thing that made Jonathan great, and the reason I put him as the number one guy wasn't because he was the most. He wasn't the most talented. Brock Newton was the most talented. Brock was a 10 300-meter guy, bench pressed over 300 pounds, 41-inch vertical leap, could catch the ball, throw the ball, cover. He was the best athlete. But Jonathan was the best football player because of his work ethic. You know, you had to actually reel Jonathan in. You didn't have to say, hey, Jonathan, let's go work. I mean, Jonathan would take a handoff in practice. He's going to sprint 40 yards down the field. And he's going to be the first guy back to the huddle. I mean, that was just Jonathan's work ethic. Weight room, track, workouts, it didn't matter. Practice time, preparing for games. Nobody did it like Jonathan. So he's got to be number one. But then, you know, you've got the Broderick Newton, who was a tremendous athlete. You got Jace McQuillan and JoJo Earl, and 2 great football players, great athletes.
And people forget that Jace was pretty much hurt his whole career, but that kid was always out there.
Jace was hurt his freshman year, his sophomore year, his junior year, and his senior. He missed games every year, and people look and say, well, he didn't have the yards that Jonathan did or DeMarco even. But it was because he missed, like his senior year, I think he missed 6 games. Wow. His senior year, and still rushed for well over 1,000 yards. And then going to the 5th guy, you know, you can't just name one there because you're talking about DeMarco Roberts. You're talking about Matt Bishop, Luke Bishop, Jake Bishop, and Hoss Haney. You know, that's a big group right there that you cannot differentiate between. And I'm gonna tell you, Hoss has a chance to be one of the best that's ever come through here as a quarterback and an athlete.
Wow. Getting back to Jonathan Gray, he said if you only played him in the second half, you know, he would have been the nation's all-time touchdown king.
Oh, there's no doubt. He would hold the rushing record for total yards. He already has the touchdown, but he would hold everything. He'd hold every record. And honestly, going into his senior year, his dad and I, James, we had a conversation about this. And I asked him, I said, how important are these records to you? Because, you know, we can set every record there ever was this year with Jonathan. I said, but it's going to be in the 3rd and 4th quarter of games when we're 100 points ahead. And I said, we're going to have to talk to him about running out of bounds on the 1 as opposed to scoring, and then us taking a knee and giving the ball back to people. And he said, Coach, and James is very humble, and just like Jonathan learned everything he learned from his dad and mom. And James said, Coach, if he needs to be in the game, put him in the game. And there were games when he could have rushed for 500-600 yards, and he rushed for 300 yards. Wow. So, and he never complains about, not having any of those records. You know, he's a heck of a football coach. He'll be a head coach. I'm saying he'll be a head coach in less than 10 years.
I can't wait to see it. He's just an unbelievable human being.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where it starts with him. And, you know, he learned from you, and I know you've developed so many kids like that. But, boy, what a great family and just an unbelievable guy. The first time you talk to him, you love the guy. You feel like you've known him forever.
The success we had on offense this year had a lot to do with our running backs. And during spring football, we didn't know who our running back was going to be. Actually, it was the second game of the year before we realized that Hawk Daniels we were going to use him at the running back spot because, you know, our quarterback could run the ball but we needed a running back. But what he did with Caleb Pope, Hawk Daniels, and Ryan Cox, turning them into running backs that could be, efficient, good 5A Division I running backs was impressive.
So, it's interesting. I think back to when you first arrived at Aledo back in 1993. Tell us about the facilities and what you were thinking as a coach, because you're probably thinking this is kind of a stepping stone to something else bigger and better. What did you think about the facilities and just the opportunity of building a powerhouse?
Well, I was 32 years old. I'd been coaching at A&M. I'd coached in 5 different schools. There was 5 different towns at that time. And, it was the worst facilities I'd ever seen. We had 7th grade through 12th grade in one field house, unair conditioned, rat infested.
Oh, man.
They did not have they had a weight room, but they had 1 bench, 1 squat rack, 1 incline rack, and they had 3 bars. I mean, it was, but they only had 17 kids in high school playing football. 10th through 12th grade, they had 17 kids in the football all season.
Wow.
And they're in the district with South Lake Carroll, Decatur, Springtown, Bridgeport, Lake Worth, Lake Dallas, and Castleberry.
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, it's a pretty potent dang district. I mean, South Lake had just won back-to-back state championships. And we're in there with those guys. And Bridgeport and Lake Dallas and Springtown, all those were good football schools. And there was a reason why I was the 5th head coach in 4 years. One of them only stayed 2 days. So I knew, but you don't get good jobs if you've never been a head coach before. You've got to go into a place and try to build a program. And the one thing that when I got here, the one thing I did realize really fast is that, 1, the community wanted to win. 2, the school board wanted to win. And I'm not talking about just in football. They wanted to win. They wanted to win. If you're playing checkers, they wanted to win. And the kids wanted to win. They just didn't know how. And so we started to really work on teaching the kids how to win, because really they were just trying not to get beat too bad. That was their mindset. We're going to lose. Let's just not lose too bad. So we had to change the entire culture of the program. And we were last in everything. We were last in football, boys basketball, you name it. Now baseball would make the playoffs, and then they would get run ruled by Abilene Wiley in the first round. We were last in academic UIL. Band was somewhat good, but they weren't doing what they do today. So it was an entire culture of the school that we had to change. And luckily had a really good high school principal in Lynn McKinney, who's now our deputy superintendent. And everybody was on the same page. Really good school board, and it worked.
I think the thing that really jumps out at me whenever I have gone out there is every kid, from the time they're 2 years old and they understand what a high school is, they want to be a Bearcat and they want to win a state championship like all the guys before them. Now, people say that, right? And they want to do it, but these kids actually do it. How do you make them believe they can do it?
Well, honestly, we don't talk about it. What we talk about is developing a good work ethic and accountability. I talked to the seniors today about about them leading this group of kids that we've got coming, because there's freshmen in there, there's sophomores in there, there's juniors, 2B juniors in there. And I'm sitting there going, what's your legacy going to be? What are you going to do as a senior class? Are you going to not win a state championship? Do you want to win a state championship? Do you want to go undefeated? What is it that you want to do? And we got to decide. We got to set our goals on what we want to do. And then the number one thing is, how are you going to get there? You don't get there just by talking about it. We've got to work. You got to hold each other accountable. And basically we talk about, we ran the dog out on this morning because a couple of kids had left their cleats on the floor. A couple of kids had left shorts not hung up in their lockers. And it's the little things. You've got to take care of little things. And if you can do that, the winning's going to take care of itself. And that's been our philosophy since 1993, that take care of the little things and let the winning take care of itself. And it's been a pretty good philosophy.
So I look at the 11 state titles. I mean, you've had 9 state championships since 2010. And the news came just before the state championship that you're going to go into the Texas High School Coaches Association's Hall of Honor. It's the most prestigious honor in this state for a coach. What did that mean to you?
Well, honestly, I didn't know if I'd ever go in, honestly, because, it's not a Hall of Fame. It's a Hall of Honor. And it's not just about how many wins you have. It's about what you've done for high school sports and football in the state of Texas. And it means, it's probably one of the, like you said, it's the biggest honor there is. And I mean, when I look back at the guys I know that are in there, Gene Rogers, who was our head coach in AD in Killeen growing up, Tommy Cox, who I worked for, was my linebacker coach at Killeen and then went on to be the AD and head coach in Austin. I did my student teaching under him. The Phil Danahers, Ross Rogers, TJ Mills, Joey Florence, you're going in with a group of people that, it really makes you, tear up a little bit, honestly. And then, but I'm not stupid. I'm pretty sure those guys are just like I am. I know why I'm getting to go in there because, number one, I've always been able to hire really, really good coaches to surround me to coach our kids. And I learned from the Rogers family, Gene, our head coach in AD when I was growing up, and then Ross when I worked for him in College Station, that you hire good coaches and you let them work. You let them do their job. And that's what I've tried to do ever since I started being a head coach. Now, if they do something wrong, as Coach Wood said, they'll get an AE. I let them coach. I let them do their jobs, and then the athletes that we've had. You look at and not just the superstar athletes. I'm talking about the average football players who have turned themselves into good or excellent high school football players. I know that any honor I ever receive is because of those kids and those coaches and the community around us.
And I know you love it when the kids come back too and they're successful. What does that mean to you? Because you're building young men.
Chuck Filiaga was in the weight room working out the other day, the big offensive tackle who went to Michigan and finished up his career at Minnesota and getting ready to go in the NFL. I went and watched TCU work out yesterday and saw big Wes Harris and Wyatt Harris and Colt Ellison. And, JoJo was in the weight room the other day. Brock Newton and, guys that played on the first state championship are still in the community and still come by and see us or on the sidelines for games. It's great to see those kids, and they're not kids anymore. I talked to one the other day. He's 47 years old. I'm like, golly jeepers, y'all are getting old. But it just tells you how long I've been doing this. But these guys, it's great to see them. Great to see them.
What do you think separates the Aledo community from everyone else? Because the support there is just remarkable.
I think it's a lot like Carthage and Argyle, places like that. Lake Travis. You have a group of parents in a community that expect their kids to be overachievers. That is, and it doesn't matter if it's football or band or academics. And I'm gonna tell you, the 98% of our parents and our kids, they expect to be better than what they should be. If they're a 90 average student, that genetically they should make 90s. They want to make 95s. They want to make 100. If they're genetically supposed to run a 4.840, they're going to do everything they can to run a 4.640.
Wow.
And that is the culture that we built here, that you don't have to be the best athlete to be a good, especially in football. In football, if you'll work hard and play hard, you got a chance to be a really good player. You don't have to have, basketball and basketball and baseball. You're going to have a little bit of skill. You can hustle up to the plate, strike out, and hustle back to the dugout. But in football, if you'll hustle, if you'll sprint down the field on a kickoff, you can be a starter on a kickoff team. And that's what we've gotten to here, and that's what our kids have been so good about. And the parents pushing the kids to do that. Like you said, they start that in kindergarten here.
It's awesome. It's funny too. You always think about, the fork in the road and what you do in life. People don't probably realize this, but you should have been an architect, and you should have been designing buildings and skyscrapers and stuff, right?
Well, that's a good story, because when I came out of high school, first I was going to go to college and be a professional football player, and I had 2 knee surgeries and went from running a 4.6 40 to a 5 flat 40, and the offensive lineman could outrun me, and so I decided I wasn't going to be a football player anymore. I'd finished second in the state with my architectural plans when I was in high school.
Nice.
And I was going to be an architect. And I was meeting with a college advisor when I transferred from ACU to Southwest Texas. And he said, well, if you could do anything, what would you do? And I said, well, I'd still be playing football if I could do anything. He said, well, we've ruled that out. I said, well, I'd be a coach. He said, well, why don't you coach them? I said, well, they don't make any money. They don't make a whole lot of money. He said, well, good coaches make a hell of a lot more than bad architects. And right there, I changed my mind. I said, all right, I'm gonna go be a coach. And that's the dang truth. I don't make Aledo pays me really good for what I do. I'm nowhere near the highest paid coach in the state of Texas. I'm probably the lowest paid coach in the state of Texas that's won more than one state championship. But it's a good living. And I've had more fun than you could ever believe. I mean, coaching is like a drug that keeps you young, and I feel like I'm still 18 years old.
Well, I always thought you should have been a comedian. I mean, my favorite thing was, after you won the state championship the COVID year, you had that great line, on Fox Sports Southwest where you said, hey, winning a state championship during COVID is like winning an argument with your wife. You want to enjoy it, but you never want to do it again. Where do you come up with those lines? Because you've always had those lines here and there. I always feel like you practice them in the mirror.
I grew up in a family of 7 kids, and there was always an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent living with us. And my older brothers were quite witty. And then have always been, coaches are around. There's always a joke in the coach's office going on. And if you can't be have a little bit of wit to yourself, it's hard to be a good coach these days, or ever. Especially now, I shouldn't say these days, especially 20 years ago. And you think about the Spike Dykes of the world, and I don't hold a candle to Spike Dykes or Darrell Royal and those type guys. Those guys are, you talk about storytellers now. Those guys are genuine storytellers, and that's what made them such good coaches. So I try to lighten things up by using humor.
I love it, and I think back of some of the stuff that you've gone through in your career at Aledo. I mean, there was that one situation where you won a game 91-0, and you had a parent on another team thinking you were bullying, which was crazy because you sat your starters and you're running the ball and trying to run out the clock. You probably could have beat them 150-0. Was that kind of a weird situation, because that kind of blew up into a national story and went viral?
Well, that deal was honestly a rough year. Honestly, it was my son's senior year, and we were really, really good. That's the first time of any season, because we had a brand new superintendent, Dr. Derek City, had come over from South Lake, and he walks in the first day of summer strength and conditioning. And he goes, well, what's going to happen? How good you going to be? And I just looked at him and I said, if we don't win state this year, you need to fire me.
Wow.
said, these kids are, I said, it's the best football team we've ever had. And of course, we're in a district with Fort Worth ISD. And we knew that they were did not match up with us at times. And going into that game, we knew what it was like. We were ahead of, we beat O.D. White 72-7 2 weeks earlier. And O.D. White had beaten Western Hills 56-0.
Wow.
Our starters played 12 plays. I mean, going into it,
12 plays?
Sunday, 12 plays. My son was a starting center. He played 12 plays. We had no one score more than 2 touchdowns. Wow. And we scored 91 points. The high point man on the team, extra point kicker. Oh. And I didn't even let him kick all of them. He kicked 12. He kicked 12. The other guy kicked 2. You know, I mean, it was a deal where when we game plan on Sunday, where you're normally trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to score points, how we're going to hold them, it was, how are we not going to score 100 points?
Wow. No coach is thinking that way.
I met with the officials. I said, do not let us score 100 points when I met with the officials. And I mean, it was, and you know, you as a coach, you go into games and you're fired up, you're ready, you get, we got to go beat these guys. And then 2 minutes into the game, you're up by 28 points and you're going, okay, we're scoring 28 points every 2 minutes. There's 48 minutes in a game. What are we going to do? How are we going to stop this? And then you put your backups in and they play harder than the starters. But it was bad. I mean, it was not fun. I'm going to tell you, it was not a fun game to coach. And then, of course, I thought it was a joke. My principal sends me vice principal sends me a text and said, hey, we're going to meet on Monday. You got a bullying charge filed on you. He texted me Saturday morning. And I texted him back, yeah, ha ha. And he goes, no, I'm serious. Someone has filed a state bullying charge on you. And so, of course, you know who leaked it to the media?
Who was that?
I did.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, by accident. Because I don't remember who it was, but someone from the Star Telegram called me about, they had always called back then. They used to call you for comments and stuff on Saturday. And he called about that and he said, well, I didn't get a comment about y'all beating up and bullying Western Hills last night. And I thought he knew.
Oh, wow.
So I started talking about it. He goes, well, Coach, wait a minute here. What are you talking about? And I went, oh, no. Tell me you already know about this. He goes, no, I didn't know anything about it. I said, nothing then, to forget it. And then, of course, he started researching it and found it. You know, it was a matter of public record. And I was sitting there going, it was the worst 3 days of my coaching career. Wow. Because, you know, luckily Randy Galloway was a friend and he was living out here at that time. When he heard about it, he called me and said, he said, tell your superintendent to put a gag order on you. You're not allowed to talk to the media. Of course, our superintendent loved the media. So the next thing you know, we're in a damn, 2 hours of Channel 5, Channel 4, Channel 8, Channel 11, Fox and Friends, ESPN. And I'm sitting there going, I'm so tired of this. Finally, he did. On Wednesday morning, I went to his office. I said, hey, can you give me can you order me that I am no longer allowed to talk to the media? Just give me a direct order that I can, that any conversation with the media has to go through your office. I'm not allowed to talk anymore. He goes, yes. I said, because we got a football game to play, and I'm doing nothing but talking to media every day, 8 hours to 10 hours a day.
Wow.
It was good. Now,
I'm surprised Randy Galloway didn't say, hey, don't talk to the media, but you can still talk to me.
Well, Paul called me and he goes, hey man, the news people just came in and they asked for your cell number. I told him I didn't have it. He goes, I'm telling you right now, do not talk to the news because those guys are not trying to find a feel-good story. They will try to crucify you.
Yeah.
And, heck, I was the one, and I don't remember which station it was. I don't remember if it was 5 or 11, but a lady came out. I'm sitting in Dr. City's office, and she's interviewing me. And she goes, well, Coach, if you weren't trying to run up the score, why did you throw a touchdown pass with a score with this? I said, well, ma'am, we had our backup quarterback in, had backup receivers in. At that point, every time we'd handed the ball off, we scored a touchdown. We'd handed it off 6 times, we'd scored 6 touchdowns. I said, so I thought, and we'd scored 2 on punt returns, had interception returns. I said, I thought if we threw a 5-yard hitch route where they had a linebacker inside of the guy, a linebacker outside of the guy, and a safety over the top, 1, he could drop it. 2, they could catch it. 3, he could catch it and then tackle it. I said, I did not know he was going to catch it. Nobody was going to tackle him. He was going to run 51 more yards and score a touchdown.
There has to be a little onus on the other team.
But, come on. But then she kept on. I said, let me ask you a question. I said, you were driving out here. And I don't remember which. I said, but you got Channel 4, 5, 8, and 11. Y'all are all racing to Aledo to get here. And I said, you're really y'all might be the #1 newscast in the Metroplex, right? She goes, I think we are. I said, well, did you slow down and pull over on the side of the road and let those other 3 pass you and say, y'all go ahead and get there first. I'm going to let y'all be first today?
Yeah.
And she goes, point well taken. This interview's over. And she got up and walked out. But she was trying to nail me. She was trying to nail me. And then when I put it to her like that, she was fine.
Wow. That's a great way to put that. I think about, all the stuff you got to deal with. And then, you have those years where the great Steve Wood took over for you and won a few championships, and you were athletic director. What did you think about the whole athletic director only role? Did you enjoy that? Worrying about the popcorn machine and the press box and all that other stuff?
Well, we'd grown from that 3A team that we talked about, had 17 kids playing football. Did not have a weight room. We'd grown from that to a school with 1,800 athletes. We had 1,700 kids in school, kindergarten through 12th grade when I got here. And I was head coach and athletic director. In 2013-14 school year, we had 1,800 athletes, 100 different sports teams.
Oh, man.
And I did not have a secretary, nor did I have an assistant AD. And I went, I'm killing myself. I'm working from 6 o'clock in the morning till on average 10 o'clock every night, and working during football season 7 days a week, during a regular year 6 days a week. And I went, I can't do this anymore. And so I said, all right, I'm going to go be full-time AD and let Coach Wood take the head coaching job. And I knew he would do a great job. And we had some really good kids, still playing football. It wasn't like the cupboard was empty. And about 2 weeks into that, I went, "Ooh, golly, this sucks. I made a mistake. I should have told Coach Wood he's going to go be the AD, and I'd be the head football coach, because it was not fun. Because when I was AD and head football coach, the football made the job fun. It made it a lot of fun. I'd never been just an AD. And boy, when I became just an AD, it was nothing but problems. It was, nobody comes in and says, hey, you're doing a good job today. It was, little Susie is on the 7th grade C team volleyball team, and she only got to serve twice last night.
Oh, I can't even imagine.
Or my son was an all-star baseball player every year from kindergarten, from T-ball all the way to high school, and he just got cut from the baseball team. Now, he can't throw a ball from first base to second base or catch one that's thrown from first base to second base, but he was an all-star, and he just got cut. It was stuff like that. Just over and over and over and over. And and you're trying to, you want to be compassionate to people. You don't want to tell, hey, look, I'm sorry, your kid's just not any good. So the job was not a whole lot of fun at that age. And that's the reason I wanted to come back and be a head football coach again. And these last 4 years have been a lot of fun.
when I look at the 11 state championships, it's easy to point to that. But for yourself personally, we know they're going to find a way to put a statue of you out there, in the community somewhere. What do you want your legacy to be?
Really, the biggest thing is that we taught kids how to work and how to be good teammates, because in life, as you know, in your business, you can't do anything by yourself. You've got a team around you. And what you got to teach kids to do is how to compete and how to try to be the best on your team, but not to the detriment of your team. I use car business. I had some cousins and brother that sold cars at one time. And you want to be the number one salesman at your dealership. You want to be the guy. But you don't want to do that by sabotaging the other car dealers or the other car salesmen. You want them to be as good as they can be, but you want to be better than them. And that's what we've tried to teach our kids is how do you become the best you can be, but also bring everybody around you into being the best you can be. And, the neatest, it's neat having all the rings and the statues, state championship, but I will get multiple calls every year from one of the players. I have their first baby, and they'll call me and tell me how that what we did as coaches helped them become a good dad, or they get a new job and they're the president or CEO of a business, and how the work ethic that we helped them develop helped them turn into be the professional that they are today. People think that what we do is try to turn out professional football players. You know how many professional football players we've had, how many kids we've had play a down and at least one down in the NFL since I've been here in 30 years I've been here. How many NFL football players do you think we've had?
Gosh, I would say that number's got to be in the hundreds.
Zero.
Really?
Zero. We have yet there in the history of Aledo, there's only been one person play in an NFL football game.
Wow. Because you've had so many major college players everywhere.
That just tells you how hard it is to play in the NFL. Now, some of them have gotten – Jonathan Gray would have played, of course, but he got hurt. Wes Harris probably would have played, but he's had multiple injuries. Jace McQuillan may play eventually, but he's had multiple injuries. I mean, it is hard to play in the NFL. But the majority of our kids in Aledo have been just good high school football players. I mean, of course, somebody said, well, Jonathan wasn't the player in college that he was in high school. I said, I was all coaching.
Exactly.
Had a different coach in college. No, but, it's hard. It's hard once you get past high school to do anything. So I talk to parents about that all the time. Even if a kid is good enough to be an NFL player, what's the average lifespan of a NFL player? Less than 3 years.
Yeah.
So the majority of their life, they're not going to be a football player. So they better get an education. They better have another job to fall back on, those type of things. And that's what we're trying to teach our kids, not how to win state championships. We're trying to teach our kids how to be good workers, how to be productive in our society.
Well, it's been so much fun covering you all these years. You've been a mentor. You've been a friend. I patterned my hair after yours. It's worked out pretty well. But thank you so much for doing this. So great to talk to you. And I know you got to get working on number 12.
Well, we're going to go to work. I know that. And got a great group of kids coming back, great group of coaches coming back. We're excited.
Thanks for doing this, Coach Buck.
Hey, thank you.
Dude, you're awesome. You're amazing. Unbelievable job. I could go on for two. Hey, the best part about these podcasts is we can spend a lot of time together instead of having to do it in 20 seconds.
No kidding. Hey, my son, Caleb, he started trying to do a podcast because he's a big Joe Rogan fan.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He's a big Joe Rogan fan. And so Rebecca asked me this morning, she said, why are you shaving? I said, I got a podcast with Rick today. And she goes, oh, like Joe Rogan? I said, I don't know if it's going to be that long or not, but I said, it'll be fun. I know that. Somebody asked me the other day, they asked me, so why is Rick not on the deal? And so I kind of explained it to them. And they said, well, what do you think about him? I said, honestly, the first time I watched him, I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure. I said, but the first time he interviewed one of our kids, I went, the dude's good.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
And I mean, there's three guys that I put in that category who I've talked to and have watched interview people. Randy Galloway,
yeah,
Dale Hansen, and you.
Thank you. So, wow, that's nice company for me.
I mean, and I'm not blowing smoke up your butt. You three guys make kids and coaches feel extremely relaxed, and it's like just talking to you. Not you forget about you make them forget about the camera. You make them forget about being nervous. And how y'all do it, I mean, I think it's kind of like being a coach. I mean, you just do it. But y'all are really, really good at what y'all do. And that's the reason whenever they took you off that show, I wasn't going to watch it. And I said, well, that's not right. Our kids are going to be on there, and I'm not going to. I did get it upset. But I understand. I mean, it's a different world. Hopefully, this podcast still make $1 million off it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'd love to be like Joe Rogan, man, or Dave Ramsey.
I mean, you could be the sports podcast guy of that.
Yeah, I would love to do that. And the thing is, I just feel like, basically the way I want to do it is Texas high school sports is definitely, the anchor. But then go talk to Jordan Spieth because he was a star in Texas high school sports, or Kyler Murray, Clayton Kershaw, and sprinkle them in. But it's celebrating people like you, the programs, the superstar kids,